who is a dedicated educator. Career spans several decades in the field of urban education. Dr. Wilson began with the Detroit Public Schools as a social studies teacher and subsequently moved up the professional ladder as a Chapter 1 coordinator, academic dean, assistant principal, and principal. She has worked as a professional consultant within higher education, presenting on such topics as the role of a reading tutor and assisting the adult learner in a community college, which is very important for us here at Schoolcraft. Dr. Wilson earned a Bachelor's of Arts in Social Science Teaching from MSU, a Master's of Education in Reading from Marygrove College. She's an education specialist in general administration. She's an educational specialist in general administration and supervision, as well as a doctorate of education in education leadership and policy studies at Wayne State University. She currently works as an academic success coach at Schoolcraft College and is an adjunct professor at both Oakland Community College and Wayne Community College. So thank you very much, Dr. Wilson, for being with us today. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, welcome everybody. It is indeed a pleasure to stand before you and share some information about our students today. So I'm planning on scaffolding the strategies that many of you can use in your classrooms, setting. So let's begin. First thing I would like for you to do is to close your eyes. Don't look at any cell phones or clocks or anything. And I want you to close your eyes and imagine 1 minute. Sit for 1 minute, and when you think 1 minute has passed, please raise your right hand. Ready? I think I'm going to do that again. I think I'm going to see myself. Just a second. Yes, to double check. Okay, we're going to now begin. All right. Okay. So we see we had a few people that were early and some were late. So that tells us what? Let me turn this off. That we all have different concepts of time, right? Some is fast and some is slow. Just want to get an idea when we talk about time management. So since you know we're talking about time management, I have this riddle that I usually give my students. And of course, since you know we're talking about time, I bet you guys know the answer. What is the longest yet the shortest thing in the world? The swiftest yet the slowest, most divisible, and the most extended. The least valued and the most regretted. Without which nothing can be done, which devours everything, however small, and yet opens life and spirit to every object, however great. Generally, when I give this to my students, they come up with some terms, good terms, But you all know the answer is time. Yes. I like that part in there that says the swiftest yet the slowest. Man, when I was 15, 35 was old, right? And now that I'm, like Shaq says, well, I'm not yet 50. Loosely. 60 doesn't seem so old. It's right on time. When we're having fun and we're dancing and we're enjoying ourselves, it seems like time flies by. Yet sometimes when we're involved in something that's arduous, and boring and just tedious, oh my gosh, it seems like time stands still. But nevertheless, we all have what? The same amount of time every day. All of us, no matter where we are in life. We have 168 hours per week, the same as our students have. And one thing you've learned, okay, that was me, okay, not me guys. One thing that we know from previous sessions about our students is that the majority of them are what? Working. They're commuters, they're part-time. You look at the data sheet. So they have a lot of obligation. They're stretched very, very thin. And we have to help them as professors. Because no matter what, they must stay ahead with their academic tasks or they're behind schedule. I tell my students that all the time. If you're not ahead of schedule, then you're behind schedule. Another thing I ask my students, and you can too, is can you manage time? Or time management is a misnomer. Why is that? Can you manage time? The question is, the answer is, class, no. You cannot manage time. They'll say, yes, I can manage time. No, you can't. What you can do is manage yourself and the activities you choose to do. You either choose to come to class or you don't. You choose to go to that party and go to the movies when you know you have a paper due on Monday. We can control our actions, and that's what we need to convey to our students, help them along. So how do we do that? And our professors that presented in session 2, they had a lot of great ideas. And the first thing we do is we know that academic success begins day one. Day one, the first day of class. And why is that? Because we give them that document, the Bible of the class, as it were, the almighty syllabus, which I'm going to talk later about again. And we had some great ideas for some of your faculty. But one thing for sure is, instead of just reading the syllabus to them or assuming that they can read and understand, there are some things that maybe we can help them along with in terms of managing their time or seeing the big picture. And that is have them highlight the key dates, the weekly assignments, when projects are due, the dates of the midterm, and other assessments. Have them do that. Also, remind them that this is the most important campus resource at their disposal, that syllabus. And they should refer to it every week. How many of you have experienced, well, after 3 weeks, and you say, take out your syllabus, and many of the students don't know where they are, can't find it. Oh, they're somewhere in the book bag, they're somewhere. Because they don't realize the importance of reviewing that syllabus each and every week to keep on time, on task, and on their mission. And their mission, of course, is to acquire an associate's degree. Explain to them the ratio. We all know that research tells us that for every credit that our students take, they should devote 2 hours outside of class. However, it depends on the difficulty of the class. For many, if they're taking STEM classes, your math classes, chemistry, etc., they may need to devote 4 hours outside of class for that particular course. So depending on the course, and oh, I thought I put this on my way, sorry. Depending on the course, you need to make them aware of how many hours outside that it would take for them to study for your course. Okay, so just remind them of that. Also, research is clear that they should have a planner. Now, today, back in my day, you know, which was about 2-3 years ago when I was in school, back in my day, we didn't have electronic planners and all those kinds of apps. But today, our society is replete with all kinds of electronic apps that will help you stay on time, reminders, to-do lists, the whole 9 yards. So there's plenty. However, we should encourage them to use a physical planner as well. It is something about writing the dates in a planner you can refer to. So I always encourage students to use both. And we in the LAC, we have plenty of planners in case your students don't have any. Please encourage them to come by. We'll be more than happy to give them one and show them how to use it, as well as all our academic coaches. We are aware of time management strategies, so if they want more information, they can come and see any of us. Lastly, I want you to encourage them to use the resources. We have very comprehensive resources here at Schoolcraft. As was mentioned in my bio, I work at several other community colleges, and I must say that Schoolcraft is second to none with its resources for students. So tell them about the LAC, encourage them to see it too, encourage them to use PAL if you have those courses. Encourage them to visit you in your office hours. That's very important. Sometimes students are afraid to do that. Let's make that more inviting. All of these things working together in concert will help our students stay on time and on task. And lastly, here are tips from your colleagues. I listened and I took copious notes last time, and I said, wow, they have some good tips that maybe I should share again, so that if some of you are not using them, maybe you can embed them in your courses as well. So of course, again, we've heard from last time that you need to provide a detailed syllabus, and that's very true with the dates. Also, I would include the dates that they're out of school and holidays, that kind of thing as well. And then space out the assignments. It was said that you should space out your assignments, Professor Berg. I believe you mentioned that. You know, if you can anticipate, you know, space it out like on Tuesday or Thursday, Monday or Wednesday, especially if you're taking 7-week courses. Use your Blackboard, of course, many of you do, and many of you use the email and announcement. I think we have studies saying that they need to have reminders. As a matter of fact, one of our colleagues in LAC, Nancy Angela, just conducted a survey for NAED, in which the students that participated from Schoolcraft said that they want reminders. They would like for the professors to remind and to help them stay on task as to what's due. So that was very valuable information that was gathered by one of our own, Nancy Angela. So reminders, give the reminders. Also remind them in class as well about important dates. Some of your colleagues even use the flipped class. I thought that was interesting. And that is, they simply provide time for them to do the homework in class, during class time, because our students are so busy. And then they may require that they use Blackboard to see the lecture or podcast or demonstration. So that's a popular idea as well, to help our students stay on task and manage all the multitude of tasks they have to do, just living life. Again, here's a listing of some of the apps that they can use, time management apps, to-do lists, etc. There are, as I said, a plethora. I just researched a few. But if you're talking about time management to your student, you should encourage, at least for them to think, because outside of our, we are content specialists. And content specialists know their content, and they don't want to be charged with being like a reading teacher in addition to that. So these are just things that we can talk about intermittently throughout our course that will help our students stay on time. And that is, if they know their goals, any time management plan starts with prioritizing what they have to do. your goals? What are your priorities? What do you want to accomplish in 2 years or 1 year, etc. And then it's going to require that they use some organizational tools that I've suggested, which is a planner or an app to stay on time. And most importantly, they have to use effective research-based study strategies, and I'm going to talk about some later on in the presentation. So all of these things working concurrently will help our students not only be successful academically, but also stay on task. And why do we want to encourage our students to use a planner, to refer to that syllabus on a regular basis? Is because, and make that schedule, because if they do these things, they will actually prevent procrastination. As you know, the number one problem that our students have is procrastination. They want to put off tomorrow, today, what they can do. Oh, how did they go? Put off today, tomorrow. Okay, I got it. But you know what I mean, put off what they need to be doing in a timely fashion that day. If they use a schedule, then they won't be cramming the night before trying to learn information in 12 chapters in a night, which we know is impossible to do. And hopefully, when I was researching, I said, oh, if they schedule, they might enjoy studying. Hopefully they will. It won't be such an arduous task. And that would actually allow them to gain time to do the pleasurable things, the recreational things that they really want to do. So that is time management. I'd like to end with this quotation. Everybody's familiar or should be familiar with Allen. He is a time management guru. And he says, time is your life. To waste your time is to waste your life. But to master your time is to master your life and make the most of it. We can all relate to that. Students, staff, administrators, etc. We can all heed that advice. Try to make the most of our time and schedule our professional tasks this way. I want to go on to the second segment of our presentation, and I thought that being a reading specialist, it would be quite appropriate to talk about how we can help our students read in our classes. They don't do enough of it. How can we get them to read the text after they purchase the text? The first thing is to get them to purchase the text. I have found in some of my venues that many of the students that come the first day of class probably not hear school prep. But at some institutions, I started to teach my class, and I'll only have maybe 2 people of the 20 that will have their textbook. Boy, that's a bummer. Well, but I'm sure at school prep the first day, all of your students will purchase a textbook, and they'll be ready to go. So let's talk about reading a little bit. So looking at this activity, you see 3 lines. Which one is the easiest one to read? 1, 2, or 3? 3. See, we're so smart, you're so smart. Well, 3 is correct. Why is 3 the easiest to read? Because we have what? Prior knowledge. Yes, somewhere in our lifetime we have seen a blind person on television or something, or walking to the store, and we know that when they read in what? Yes, Braille. So we know they use their fingers to read. So we've seen that, so that makes sense. So if you see line 1 is just some arbitrary letters, and 2 is just some words, but they don't make any sense. What is the lesson here? Is that the more our students know about a subject, the easier it is for them to understand. Conversely, if they don't have the content in their prior knowledge, then we as professors have to help them get that prior knowledge so they can understand our content. So, at your table, we're going to shorten it. I want to, again, scaffold some activities that you might use in your classes. I want you to take the time to say, for the sake of our presentation, is to talk with your colleagues and come up with 3 ways in which you get your students to read the textbook after they purchase it. What are 3 things that you do to ensure that your students will read the assigned reading assignment? You want them to read 3 ways. How about a minute to do that? Talk amongst yourselves, and somebody will choose a spokesperson and tell me what are 3 things that you do to get your students to read.
Each class.
Make sure they understand part of the vocabulary before they read.
What I've been doing is having students
Give a pop quiz on what they read.
react to the author and then do some
That's the
reference.
spirit of the
Do some
thing.
research related to the author. And I have them put it in whiteboards.
I have mark in their textbook.
I encourage my students to take notes on the chapter and then I let them use their notes.
You're supposed to write the book, that's right.
So if they read it, they take notes, they will always pass it.
That's the hardest thing to teach them. The hardest thing to teach them.
Mine are.
I think most of my students read, ones that do read,
Mine are essentially test.
so I think we do the whole thing, the link to start to read that section. I have students reading, actually reading the chapter. I think they start with homework, and then when they get to a section they don't know, they sometimes like the text, it takes them for a little bit, so I haven't been in this one, so I have a feeling that's almost do it even as they have a feeling they need to do something. I know I do have some, but I've got a lot of them. Yeah, yeah. And a lot of them have to eat also, and I find it hard to
Bring purpose to it though, like, my teacher, like, when you don't over there, she'll have us read, and if I don't read, I look like an idiot in class, and she brings it back up. You have them read and then never actually bring it back up in class, it's tied to what you're doing, then there's no incentive, then you're like, after the second, third time, I got time for this.
So I
Other
think a
things
lot
I
of
need to
them
do, yeah.
Okay,
But if she's
let's kind
gonna
of wrap
call
up
me in
that
class.
thought, and can I have a spokesperson quickly to tell me at least one of your ideas so we can get through? How about this group? What's one thing that you discussed, one way that you try to get your students to read the textbook? Okay. Okay.
She has pictures, and they have to find the mistake in the pictures and find what's wrong with that picture and have to read.
Very good, very good. Any others? That group in the back, did you have anything different? They said quizzes and pictures and questions. Is that about the general consensus? What did you have?
We had those two, and also a discussion that they had to be prepared.
Okay, okay.
We had
Yeah.
sharing a concept from the text. You had to come in and share something that you learned.
Okay, very good.
We had two that haven't been mentioned. One, and they're related. One is a reading response journal
Yes.
where the students incorporate, actually, I need to, you explain that one. She may be the spokesman, but
Hi, I'm Ella. I teach English, and in my English classes, I use reading response journal. It's on Blackboard, so students submit it electronically. And after each chapter or each text, they have to summarize the text and then respond to it critically. So there's an element of summarizing, analyzing, and responding. And we use textual referencing, in-text citations, etc.
Very good. Yeah.
We talked about using quizzes and
assessment as well. One of the things I didn't mention is with my online classes, I actually make a student have to be the expert for that particular chapter, and they have to post a study resource based on the reading, and they have to answer the other students' questions about what they read or what they got in homework.
Excellent, all good strategies, very good, you all are on it, very, very good, all of them. So there was this study that was conducted, and the whole purpose was to see what works in terms of getting students to read their textbook preferably before coming to class. And they determined that announced and unannounced quizzes, which you mentioned, completing questions about the reading, and short writing assignments. The key is that they need to read as well as write. You need to require some kind of product, you know, where they have to use the reading to complete the product. Very good. You are just so smart. Reflection question. What do you think it feels like, since we know that 69% of our students have busy lives, have a lot going on, maybe underprepared students coming in? What do you think it feels like for them, first time, first gen, underprepared, no fault of their own, they didn't get it in high school? What do you think it's like for them coming to college and sitting in your class for the first time? Besides like petrified, whoop! Challenging. Very challenging. Yes, I dare say I would agree with that. Okay, very challenging. So it said that readers can be divided into 4 classes. I don't know, sponges, they take in everything and give it back to you. Just the way you have given it to them. They just spit it out, regurgitate it right back. Some people, they say sandglasses, hey, they retain nothing. They just, oh, let me get through this task. I want to finish it. I'm going to skim and see what I get, answer the questions best I can, and that's it. Some just get the dregs of it. Okay, I think they get some of the residuals of what they read. Oh, no deep reading. And then we have some, and that's what we want, that are critical readers. Now, I'm posing my question now. Is there a difference between reading the textbook and being a critical reader? Yes or no?
Say the question again.
Is there a difference in just simply being a strategic textbook reader or a critical reader? Is there a difference? Yes, there is. Yes, there is. So when they read the textbook, they're reading from what? Just main ideas and some details, rote level kinds of things, just to answer the question. However, our charge as educators is to move them higher up Bloom's taxonomy. So critical readers not only understand what they read in the textbook, they can apply it to different situations, and that's what we want, right? They can make connections beyond the textbooks to other readings, to real-world applications. They can apply it in different ways. So there is a difference between reading a textbook, hey, you're going to have a test on this, and being a critical reader, okay? Look at this for 30 seconds. 30 seconds. Read it. 30 seconds. Don't write. 30 seconds. I now want you to take my little sheet of paper and I want you to rewrite what you saw, what you read in reverse order. Now reread left to right. I want you to write what you saw in reverse order. Even the expression, reverse it. Right on the first sheet that I gave, the read triangle. Okay, let me see. How many of you got it right? So you should have written lifetime AA in once. Bush, the in verb. Spring, the in Paris. How many got it right? And I bet you most of you left off that article, didn't you?
But the problem is I wrote it backwards and then I reversed it.
Okay.
I cheated.
All right, I'm gonna say how poorly I can follow directions. I just put them in reverse order, so once in a lifetime, bird, the bush, Paris, and spring.
Yeah.
Well, that's the first thing I did, but then I reversed everything that's how I did it.
Why did most of you forget the article AA, the? Because what? Our brain processes things differently. So when we read, we just put, hey, we never see it like that, so we couldn't possibly have the two A's in the sentence, right? So the lesson when we are teaching our students, we know that they have to be heard, they have to be critical readers, they have to pay attention, they have to read strategically. You know, they just can't assume. We gotta help them with that, knowing that process. And it is a process. So I'm gonna skip through this for the sake of time because I'm just telling you that reading it has three factors that impact our students' ability to read. What they already know, the context of the reading situation, they're going to be doing study reading for our classes, and the print level. Of course, many of our students don't come here reading at grade technically 13 or 14, right? And our textbooks are written at grade 13 or 14. Some of them may be reading at grade 7, 5, or 9. Doesn't mean that they can't understand the information. They just have to use strategies in order to comprehend it. They got to put in a little bit more time and use those strategies which we can help them with. Reading is a dynamic process. It's grade 4, it's dynamic, it's interactive, and it's constructive. That means they have to construct meaning. Just reading words by itself is very passive. That's why when your students come in, one of the tricks you should tell them is never read without holding a highlighter and a pen. They have to interact with that text. They have to annotate, highlight, underline. There's some researchers that say, oh, throw the highlighter away because they don't know how to do it. They just highlight everything. One tip to tell them is when they are highlighting, it's just the key terms and phrases, not the whole sentence. Okay, they should highlight less than 10% of the page. So if you happen to go by, and you can practice this, you can take a sheet from your textbook and model what it would look like if they have highlighted or annotated appropriately. One sheet, one time, while you're moving in your lesson. I'm trying to pick strategies that we can do that's seamless in our context, because you have content to cover, and you don't want to be a reading teacher as well. But you want to help them understand the information in your text. So less than 10%. Very good thing to do. Model just one page and how they would do that. If you notice the sheet on the front of your packet that I've given you is already typed in the form of Cornell note-taking. So I give that to model how Cornell notes would look as opposed to teaching them the whole Cornell note-taking process. So if you look at my sheet, you know that the column is for key terms and definitions, and on the side, I said the examples, supporting details, etc. And if you look at the back, at the bottom, it has the summary. So it's set up as if they were taking Cornell notes. So I've already modeled that for you. Again, there are 3 points to any reading system, things that they have to do before reading. They need to preview it before they start reading. Oftentimes, our students are silent, they just want to get right to it. They just want to stop. But there is a process. That means a series of steps. If they use the process consistently, they will learn the content. They will give them deep learning as they use this process over and over. So they got to preview all of the plethora of reading strategies, SQ3R, SQ4R, PR, WR, all of those Multitude of reading strategy has a preview component. They got a survey first. Look at the bold print. You can teach now, telling them, look at the bold print, the heading, teach them the 5, W1H, and then they have to do something during the process. That is making those predictions, and that's highlighting key terms, put the example down, etc. And then after the reading, they have to do something. We need a product. They can do a summary. You can have them do a graphic organizer or an outline. They have to do something to integrate all of this information they've read. So in college, you know, in elementary, by grade 4, we teach our students by 4th grade or in 4th grade how to read. But when they come to us in college, they have to read to learn. They have to read well, because we want them to be able to not only understand it, but they have to apply it, analyze it, synthesize it, all the way up the ladder of Bloom's taxonomy to creating something. That's what they need to be able to do at the college level, read to learn. So these are some of the reasons that our students don't complete the assigned reading. I know you've heard, as I've heard many times, well, I took a test and there was nothing from the textbook on the test. I didn't understand anything on that. So they don't feel if there's no questions, and I'm sure this is not true, but that's some of the complaints we hear. So we want to make sure that we are incorporating questions from the readings, from the textbook, as well as from our lectures. Because typically when we lecture, we're giving them the up-to-date information in our content. And sometimes we say, well, they know how to read. They can read and get the information from the textbooks on their own. That's not true, particularly for some of their classes. And I heard the gentleman talking about chemistry. There's a lot of information in these STEM classes that they have to know, and it's going to take a repetition for them to get it. Poor reading skills, so we work on that here at the LAC and in your classes. Sometimes they just don't understand. Yeah.
I always struggle with, is there a way to give suggestions on how you can identify if the student has a reading problem?
Yeah, you can monitor, they can monitor, self-regulate their learning if they're having difficulty with the types of questions that you are asking them and they don't seem to be getting it. Even if you tell them, maybe you reread it and have them say it back to you, and if they stumble with that, they have a recall problem, that might be indicative of
Is there, and I'm not a reading specialist, so
Yeah.
I don't know this, but I always assume that there was issues with their writing, that would indicate. there
your
was a
reading and
problem.
writing are companion height or thinking skills, they do go together. Yes, you can look at some of the answers, if the answers are way off from the question, that is like a red flag, but you still probably will need more than just that. Talk to the student and say, have a conversation. They'll tell you, but yeah. And you probably will see that if they're answering questions in class and they're way off the mark too. In terms of that. So listen, that's a good indicator. So here are some things that I'm going to do quickly, so that some things that we can do quickly is have mini lectures. Lecture 10, 15 minutes and do something. You can do a stop, thinking, have them jot down or paraphrase what you said in maybe 1 or 2 sentences. Because we don't want to lecture for a half an hour at a time, we lose our students. And then give them a time limit, like I said, 1 minute. Give them short questions, but move the questions along up the hierarchy. You know, you can start off with some basic level and move it up for them, okay? So to answer your question, you can assess then if they're getting it by the responses that they give to those questions. So we've already talked about that. But this is what we have to do, and this is what our students should know, our college students should know. They should be able to recognize the author's purpose, the bias, know fact from opinion, challenge questions and assumptions. You know, they have to be able to learn different perspectives, Integrate information, particularly if we have to do projects and research papers. They have to use a variety of sources. Identify rival hypotheses. Evaluate and draw conclusions. We want them to be able to analyze, synthesize, and evaluate and create. So how do we help them do that? We have to model it in many instances. We model it ourselves, talk about, tell them about being self-regulated readers. If they run across some terms they don't understand, don't just keep reading. You know, you gotta stop and look it up. Sometimes you may have to go back and reread that information. We as professors can chunk our information and our concept that we give them. Again, I come back to that teaching tool, that very important tool is that syllabus. It has to be detailed and specific. And rather than just read the syllabus, there are some activities. I use the shared pair in my classes. Rather than just give them the syllabus and expect them to read it, as part of my first day of class activities, I'll do a shared pair. I have a sheet in which talks about the different parts, you know, my office hours, homework, makeup work, that kind of thing, and I have them fill it out in pairs, and then they report out to me, each group, how they interpreted that. I am amazed at sometimes things I think are so simple, they don't get. For example, I'm adjunct, so I really don't have office. My office hours are during my class time, but I put that question on there. And so if they don't say it has office hours pre and post class, and they will leave that question blank, I said, I don't have office hours? No, I don't see a time like Monday at 2 o'clock, but it says pre and post class. So they weren't thinking, because they said, oh, it's got to be a specific time. That's just one example that I've encountered. So try to use that tool in a different way, rather than just giving it to them and even reading it to them word for word. I do go back after they share and report out and highlight those specific deadlines and have them, I'd rather have them highlight those specific dates. I do that. Explain your requirements. Make sure that when you are giving the reading assignments and you have assigned in the syllabus that they are relevant, they are aligned to your curriculum, which I know they are. And make sure that you try to use an activity from that textbook each class session, so they will bring it. They will see the relevance of bringing their textbook to class and reading it ahead of time, okay? It says make your expectations clear about when the reading should be done. I am amazed that if you have reading to do, that means you have homework. Second week, if you're going to go over chapter 4 and 5, week 3, you got to read it. In week 2, doing week 2. It's amazing. But if they don't know, it's our charge to help them, because some of them have not had the benefit of navigating or having parents that have navigated the college system, okay? Again, read with the text. Encourage to use, some of you said online resources, I believe you mentioned that. Don't lecture on everything in the assigned reading. Sometimes professors say, well, I'm just going to go over it again. The students will never read the book if they feel all I got to do is come to lecture and I can get everything I need to pass the test. No, they need to read. We need to help them. Test them on what you have lectured on, as well as what they were supposed to have read. Very important. Again, so we can make that textbook a meaningful tool that they have purchased. Some of these textbooks are very, very expensive, so we want them to use it. Scaffold, what it means to survey, what it means to scan the scan. Scaffold that for them very early on. As I said before in my example, take a page and show them what it would look like to annotate, highlight a page from your textbook, and demonstrate the importance. Make sure you kind of teach the specialized vocabulary or give them strategies for looking up, defining the specialized vocabulary and terms for your discipline. Again, you can have them turn to pages. I believe somebody mentioned it back there. They turned to their pages and they had are sharing out 5 W's, 1 H. And before exams, please tell them what's going to be on the exam, the type of questions is going to be on. I believe one of your professors last week said in his PowerPoint, he has the answers bold in the PowerPoint to what's going to be on the exam, and they need to be cognizant of that. That's one strategy I thought that was interesting. Give them a practice test. We got to help them along. And then finally, you can have them create their own lists in cooperative groups, shared pairs, small groups. Many of the things that you said, you all are so smart here, taking the announced, unannounced quizzes, your reading response journals, mapping, outline, cooperative reading groups, you all are on the mark. These are many of the things that we can seamlessly embed in our courses that will help our students stay on time as well as read in advance. We want them to read and feel comfortable with doing that, okay? So, in summary, we have to guide our students through course information. They have to know the purpose for reading. They have to be stimulated in their thinking, their curiosity aroused. They have to be assisted with those major concepts and specialized vocabulary. They have to know that you read at varying speeds. Of course, we can read anything that we like very rapidly, but for the textbook, they have to use study reading, which is 50 to maybe 250 words a minute. They have to read slower and more carefully, but they have to be held accountable for reading because that's part of the college experience. We don't want to spoon feed, we just want to help them along. Okay? So, here's my text. 3 truths and a fear. Which one is the fear? And the answer is, who else? Hold up your finger, 1 and 2 and 3 or 4. All right, we have a winner. The answer is 3. I believe I helped you along when I stopped. Did you get what I stopped and paused and like, oh, there is a difference between textbook reading and critical reading, right? Everybody got that? Oh, you are a good student. And I'm going to leave you with this little funny cartoon. And then when he picked up the book, all the letters slid off.
I like it.
And then finally, I think my excuses need to be expert radius. I got it. You guys, thank you for your time, your participation, your cooperation, and attention. Thank you so much. Hope you learned a thing or two.
Thank you very much, Dr. Wilson. Next, we're going to have Jason Kane, who is an instructional designer at Schoolcraft. Many of you may have worked with Jason if you do any online development. Jason received his BA degree in English and U.S. history from the University of Michigan. It was a good basketball game, wasn't it, Jason? And an MA in educational technology from Michigan State University. He is also one of the 3 geniuses behind the hit and now award-winning professional development series. Does anyone know the name of it? What's Your Problem? Yes. Previously, Jason worked as a high school teacher for 10 years, teaching English and literature. In his free time, he loves spending time with his wife and 2 children. He is a huge movie fan, and if you didn't know this, he is a film critic. He has an alter ego and blogs at The People's Critic. So yesterday I went and checked this out. He made predictions for the 2018 Oscars. It was his worst year ever.
I didn't do very well.
No, he didn't do very well at all. He made 24 predictions and only got 13 of them right. But I will say it was probably a pretty difficult year when it was a love story with a fish monster. So, Jason's here to talk to us about Blackboard and providing quality feedback for our students.
Yeah, at first I want to say Dr. Wilson, what you doing?
Oh.
Well, I thought that was really great. I think she did a good job, because like I used to teach English in high school, and obviously literacy is a huge thing for us to be able to support, to get people to community college and to college, and it's a great equalizer. It's not, I mean, English teachers are tasked with it, but it's, as I think Dr. Wilson made a point, it's cross curriculum. That reading is something that students need assistance with and support in all courses. So I thought that was really good. So anyway, Michelle tasked us a little bit with, this whole series. It's been in development for, almost a year, right? Like, you started talking about this?
Last summer.
Yeah, so, a year, and then 3 very well-attended sessions that were well-researched, and students and faculty and everybody gets together, and Michelle's like, can you create a takeaway for people to come away with that's a page long for all the things that just happened over the last 6 months, year? So, super easy to do. But I'll try to use some reading strategies to make you want to read this thing that we made. If you didn't get it, it's over by Anita. There's colored copies because Anne was awesome and made them look good. But all we did was we just kind of broke down. We started with the student panel. What was really the key stuff that happened there. Talked to some of the faculty that kind of gave us some ideas, and we just kind of decided that there were a few things that we wanted you to take away from this Teaching Today's Students sessions. And the first is, fortunately, something that Dr. Wilson mentioned is, Blackboard was something that was brought up quite a bit, and I know I'm from distance learning, but I'm not here to talk about how it's, online stuff. I'm talking about just general use. Blackboard is a place where you can store stuff so that when you hand, we just got this, which is awesome, lots of good stuff in here from Dr. Wilson, and all I'm thinking is how quickly can I make this digital so that I know where it is all the time. Paper's great, you hand them paper, they put it in their backpack, maybe it stays there, maybe it doesn't. So Blackboard can just be simply a place, and this document just kind of goes through 3 things. So the first is talking about using Blackboard no matter what, just as a resource. And the first thing about it is it's a place to compile resources, even if it's just the first things that you give out on that day 1. They're overwhelmed. We already know that the students coming in with all kinds of stuff that's going on, and this is a way to back up the information. When I was teaching high school, I used Blackboard actually because my school had accounts for us, which was kind of nice. But I used to get because we had a lot of students coming up with every excuse in the book, and having the stuff on Blackboard was the way for me to get away from so many excuses. They're like, I lost it, I don't know where it is. I'm like, it's always there, it's always there. It's the same thing every time. And you know where it is, you didn't lose it, you're trying to get out of something, that's what it came down to. So that's one thing that does. It's a place to compile resources, even if it's just your first day stuff. It's a way to extend the classroom. You see your student, 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, maybe a week or less even. You show them a video, you talk about an article, all the stuff that you do, and they see it and they absorb it and they take their notes. But a lot of it is, as Dr. Wilson said, using online resources. Well, why not offer them in Blackboard as well as a secondary place to go? And then the other thing is that Blackboard's a place for you to help provide feedback. Feedback was probably one of the most consistent things that the students in the panel talked about as something that encourages them. And whether you're providing it through an email, or using the announcement function in Blackboard, which then connects to the emails, or using Grade Center or interactive rubrics. You don't have to build a lot of stuff in Blackboard. It's just like you can use some of the feedback functions to help with that. So we thought Blackboard will help with a lot of the things that the students talked about on the panel. The second thing is we did do a bunch of problem on feedback, and actually we put out a little CEPD online course as well about that episode because it was such a topic that was brought up. And so we came up with a quick little blurb about some of the things that you can do to kind of improve your bang for your buck on feedback. There's one study that was published in the Association of Supervision and Curriculum Development that says that students don't learn much from feedback provided more than a week after completion. They've already moved on. So sometimes just timeliness. You know, what you say matters, but when you say it also matters. So one thing to do is just to keep that in mind. And Blackboard, again, can be helpful in that regard, or however you want, but keeping the timeliness in mind. Specific, general feedback's great, but specific feedback is proven to be more of a motivating factor. So taking the time to say, not every assignment that you do deserves specific feedback, but every once in a while you offer something where maybe you decide, I'll be specific here instead of super quick and timely. This is a place for me to take a day instead of half a day and just give something more specific and encouraging and scaffolding. And then lastly, the personal thing. Let them know you know who they are, use their name, things like that. They're all just general motivating factors to provide some personal feedback. And like I said, there's a little bit.ly there if you want to watch our What's Your Problem on feedback. We cover kind of the same things here in a little more detail. And the last thing that Michelle asked us to talk about is Grade Center, which can be super complicated, no doubt about it. The Grade Center can be as easy or as complicated as you want. And Brad Stetson is a really good faculty contact if you want to know some of the more, I guess, complex ways to use Grade Center. He does instruct on our distance learning credentialing courses, and part of it is about Blackboard and about, I mean, it's all about Blackboard. Part of it's about the Grade Center. And so he can get you through some of the larger bumps in a pretty, I think, reasonable way. He's done some sessions on this for us before at the last Michigan Blackboard User Group Conference that was held here. He presented on it, so he probably has all that stuff still. So if you want to know any more. But I just broke it down to a few things that I thought were simple but maybe underused. And the first is you can create grading schemas. And it's as easy as you go into your Grade Center, and I put some of the directions there as well as screenshots, and just say create grading schema. And you can name it what you want, and then all of a sudden you can, instead of just using percentages, you can tell that the percentages equal letter grade. And then you can determine, like, if you enter a letter into your Grade Center, it will make an average percentage that you decide if that's how you want to run things. Or if you create a certain range that equals a letter grade, you can have that display. Or if you put in percentages, you can have points displayed. There's a lot of ways to do it. So if you go in and create, you can play around with it. You're not going to screw anything up. So you can kind of create grading schemas, see how they work. And then you can actually create totals columns in your Grade Center that will show those schemas. So you can show their points, you can show their letter grade, you can show percentages, all the things that you want to show or don't want to show. So there's some stuff about that. A reminder on entering zeros. There is a way, and I only say this reluctantly, there is a way to have everything you do be a zero until you put points in, but it gives the students a really unfair idea of what's going on. So the best thing to do is what you do. Just leave your assignments blank until you put in points. But then if something is past due, or something is late, or something is missing, you need to go back and put those zeros in because they're not impacting the grade as a blank. And so if you want students to have a really good snapshot of what they're doing, you're going to want to make sure you put your zeros in. And I think I already talked about the primary display there. And this QR code at the end and that bit.ly go to a little website that goes through some of the things you can do with Grade Center that Brad uses in our credentialing courses, so you can use that too if you want to try it yourself. It's basically what I put in here along with some extra details. So that's what we came up with. I thought it was kind of a good summary of the things that were brought up in these sessions. I think it goes kind of nicely as a takeaway, hopefully. And so thank you, and let us know if you have any.
Sounds like grading schemes. Is it possible to set it up so that your department grading scale is in there, so at the end it can look at the percentage and pop back out what the 0 to 4 point is?
It would copy if we put it in RTT, and it would be there. And then it's user decision on if you use it or not. Because you can choose which ones you want to use or not use. You can decide what totals columns you want to put in there. It's sort of a customization. But we can talk more about it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah.
I have a question about entering zeros.
Yeah.
That's a great concept, but please help me understand. In my online classes, I do allow late submissions
Sure.
for some assignments.
Sure.
So I do not enter those zeros because if I did, that would prevent the students from actually submitting the assignment. Am I right?
It could, and
So
again,
how do I-
it's
how
very
do-
much it's very much the culture you create.
Right.
If you make that statement ahead of time, like, if it's late, it's a 0, I have a late policy, I will adjust the grades accordingly, but if they see their grade, all they do is go in and say, I'm gonna see what I have right now, and they see, oh, I have an A, because you're waiting to see if they turn something late. It depends on the relationship and the culture you create in the class. It's just a practice, it's something Michelle wanted us to mention, just to say, you know, that there is a reason to kind of consider this idea of putting in the zeros.
But when you put in a 0 on Blackboard, it does not preclude the student from submitting the assignment. Because I do that all the time.
Right.
I'll put in a 0, then they'll submit the assignment, and I know it's late.
Right.
And then I can go back and grade it as a late assignment.
But they can still
Blackboard
submit
doesn't
it, right?
stop them from submitting it.
Yeah, they can,
Yeah.
they can
Alright.
still submit it,
They
but
can
all
still
you've
submit
done
it.
is put a manual override.
Yeah.
But you have
Yeah.
to go in and change the override.
Right,
Yeah,
yeah,
you have
don't
to-
let
And
them-
we have been
Okay,
toying
good.
with the calendar. It's a thing that may come up someday soon. I think it would open up a lot of options for everybody if we can find a way to, at least on a full scale. Like, of course, you can play around with it, it's there if you want it, but it does not really kind of function appropriately for the way we do, at least for the way we do our RTTs, but for your own use, the calendar can be useful too. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Jason, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so what I'd like to do now is I have just 4 different questions. So I'd like, we'll take a few minutes for each question. You can talk with your row or you can form a group. And then I'd like you to report out. And we're going to summarize what we've learned through this series.
Oh, good, you bug out.
Well, all right. I can see how it's going now.
We humanities people will stay here.
Yes, yes, you better, right?
You need to take your own notes.
So if you just take a look at the first question, I want you to discuss with your group how attending these series of presentations may have changed your attitude about the students you have in your class. So we'll take a look at that one first. We'll probably spend maybe 5 minutes on that one.
Right.
This series, this is the third series. Oh. And you were in the first? I did the first one. Second was Professor, almost a professor.
Well, I think, you know, on a relatively new element, so it had confirmed some impressions.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a relatively small sample of students that I've seen.
I always found it interesting.
Yeah, things were busy, part-time, complicated lives, economic issues, hard to find textbooks. Yes, mental health issues and physical health issues, family complications.
And you?
About getting timely feedback. I actually did learn something new about the grading system. I have a scheme that allows me to automatically display well, it'll be good because it's in the syllabus, but then the student has to syllabus and to do his own calculation. My students who get an 88 on something get all excited about it.
We'll watch
So in our
I think so. I was looking at that.
Is that your put on your team hat?
That, I have it calculated so that we take the total possible and divide it into the
I know which tracks we have
yeah, or intended as possible. Gives a number of blanks and zeros on it.
very specific thing. I have a feeling they're not. So
As long as you have hard coded the total.
Right.
Possible. Yeah, if you let Blackboard do it, then it won't take the value of that column. Because that's what I do, my students. Well, so in my case, I have 10 items that get graded. And if we've gotten far enough along that we have like 1, 2, 3 years done, and the other items are done yet, then for my students, because I use the running in Blackboard, I say, you got 100, 95, and an average of 95. If they have 190 and they have not completed this, and I don't have anything, they still have a 95. But if it's due, they haven't turned it in, and I give them a 0, that 95 drops. Right.
So what I have, it says, I tell, I So what Blackboard does is they have the total points, and then the points the school earns, and then because the percentage
And yeah, in the running bullets, the zeros and signals use this column.
I think that's the difference.
And I didn't realize that at first, so I had students last semester because I didn't sign all those zeros right away. And then students last semester thought they were doing great, but not anticipated. So I got zeros all those weeks that I didn't show up.
Does everybody get an opportunity to talk about the first question?
Oh, just the
All right.
I'm teaching 90 students.
No,
So,
they-
who would like to share some of the things they discussed? I want to keep a kind of a running list of what we felt. How did your attitudes change about the students? Go ahead. Your name, please?
I didn't. So from the first part, having a lot to just understand students struggle with work, family time, exam, commuting, so just see them talking about their problems was very, very helpful, because sometimes we have the feeling that it's only our class, and in fact their life is much longer than our class. So that was very, very helpful, just to see them talking about their problems. And it was very interesting that they had different ages, they were from different departments, so, and they had different lifestyles and different occupations, so they were well. And
We got lucky. We actually tried to, we wanted to have at least some male representation on the panel, but it didn't work out. So we were able to get some students from different areas. So good. I'm glad you suggested that. Did anyone else have that same point up on theirs? I was surprised with the amount of part-time jobs. I think that one girl said she's doing 3 part-time jobs. And just the commuting, I don't know how she has time to sleep. Does anyone else have something to share?
I was surprised how much they value the feedback. I think as a faculty, sometimes we think that we give them the feedback and they don't pay attention to it or whatever, but they seem to want it and value it.
Great. Anyone else? How about someone on this side? Steve, any thoughts back there?
What, a lot of the material that we knew, but it confirmed what our understanding was.
It's true. That's what you get for being such a nice guy. Throw a coffee cup once in a while.
Basically, working for 7.
Yeah, they're piling on to what Steve said. We use the word reinforcement rather than informing. But there seems to be an expectation among some of the students that they need to be spoon-fed, and that's not our job, the spoon feeding. Our job is to build a ramp to get them from where they are to where they need to be.
So you, help me out here, so you think the students think that we should spoon feed them?
That was very clear from the first meeting.
And actually, it's, you said that because they all said they wanted test reviews, right? They wanted to know exactly what was on the test, so, okay, so students. Can I put spoon feed, is that, I mean, that's, student, I'll put students need to be guided or ramped up in their learning.
Well, I think that's right. I think the issue here is not spoon feeding, the issue is level of preparation for college. I think.
The point was they expect to be, not need to be. They
Okay,
expect
students
to be.
expect,
Yeah, they're expecting starting at ground zero every time.
I heard that differently from the panel and from my experience, that some students do not come as well prepared for the college experience as others, and particularly students who come to Schoolcraft may come from a place where they've been accustomed to that kind of, if we use the word spoon feeding, and so we need to figure out how to get them, ramp them from wherever they are to where they need to be, right?
and I think that's what you're suggesting.
Yeah.
He's suggesting that's what our responsibility is to recognize that they have some level of anticipation of being spoon-fed. And we've got to kind of alter that expectation to change their view. Right? So I'm going to put down here instructors.
We have a core ability called critical thinking, and part of it is to make students recognize in course material what is important that will be tested on. What out of it is what you're trying to get across out of all the information. So if you spoon feed them too much, they never learn to critically think about the material.
And what they're learning. So focus on critical thinking skills. When I was thinking back and reflecting on this, one of the things that surprised me is I think I became a little more empathetic to their time. I remember talking to Cindy about this, and Jason and I are developing a course together. I would put just a ton of resources out there and say, okay, you student, you figure out what works best for you. And I was almost really kind of just having them throw a dart at a board to try and figure out what they would work for them. And so I tried to really tailor that down and come down to like 3 resources at a time for a particular topic. And I would try to make them short. So that was one. All right, so let's move on to the second. Oh, go ahead.
Dr. Wilson pointed out to be aware of the knowledge level that they have prior to coming here. And so that's something that is very important because I used to take things for granted, and now I don't anymore because I don't know if my students know what a subject is, or what a verb does, or what whatever. So everything is from the very, very, every behavior.
That's a good point. That's a very good point. Sometimes I will assume that someone knows how to do multiply by a fraction, and that might not be the case. So I have to take maybe just 30 seconds or a minute and address it. All right, so let's move on to the second question. We'll spend about 5 minutes here. Share with your group any new ideas that you plan to take back into the classroom as a result of attending these series.
I also took from YouTube this idea that maybe to make better use of Blackboard.
Well, not necessarily.
My students can read our responses for the plays they read. They read 2 to 3 plays this semester. And I've had them doing paper copy. I could kill 2 birds with 1 stone if I had to do that in Blackboard. But of course, it's then
Like eating in sections of last, I made the last.
I've struggled to get them to connect, some of them to connect electronically. This time I gave them an assignment. And after the first week I said, go in, log into Blackboard, log into your Schoolcraft email, send me an email telling me you've done both those things. So I gave them 5 points for doing that. No, that was part of their participation track. But if I give them assignments to do in Blackboard, of course, I still have students who haven't done anything.
Of course.
There's no good time about announcements or anything. A nice person. He just, it's awful. One guy told me he lost his door. I thought it would be I don't want to use it.
I'm still working on 130. That's a big point, it really is. Most of my distribution chapter, well, researched the chapter, and then as you put it in the discussion.
I mean, it is.
Today I'll go upload it, so we'll probably write something or Tuesday. Yeah, I have to move to the right folder, and it didn't get not all the same today, so she's gonna go on Monday. She sent it to me.
I did one assignment. But even when
That way, if a person does miss a class, when they're sick, I don't have to be the business to make it. That sort of stuff. They can make it up for the
I just don't.
I don't think it's a situation they can get what you say real quick.
Yeah.
Responsibility for their lives, and if they're absent, there are
The other thing I took away today is this idea of modeling note-taking from the text.
or if they miss a test,
Because I talked about that a lot last week, every teacher said
they can't.
and I told my students, I'm here to teach you how to be a
Show up
college
on
student.
Thursday, she missed a test on Tuesday,
And
now
that's
she's
why
like,
I
I'm
asked
like,
them,
this is it.
when I try and describe it, this idea of
I hate to cut you all off on this question, but I want to make sure I get everything in and be respectful of your time and end up at 11:30. So, what do we think? What are some takeaways you're going to bring into the classroom? Just maybe go around by group. Go ahead.
Today's part, what I got from Dr. Wilson's lecture, was to have mini lectures and then ask them a question and ask them to write it down, their answer. Because first, when they write it down, they remember it better, they are more motivated, and then you ask them. And then it's like an active break, so they prevent them from work, and it's a good thing to reward them with few extra points, because it's good for, it's good for attendance too, because you can get those extra credit points if you are in class.
Right, you've got to be in class.
And then it piles up for their score, which is good to motivate them.
Right.
And the second thing is to slow down. Because I teach Bio 101 and most of them do not have that prior knowledge. And there are
get
two
started.
students in the class who are in nursing and they are motivated to learn the bio 101, but most of the students are like easy or so they have to take bio 101. And I had the feeling that you have to slow down to give them that amount that they can digest. Because if you give them too much, it's like too much of a good thing. The best.
Well, and that, you know,
Yeah.
modeling those together would probably be very effective.
Yeah.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah.
Next group, what'd you guys come up with?
Well, one of our shortcomings in science is we have a tendency to assume that the students are going to use the textbook as a resource, and we tell the story our way. So I'm going to start bringing my textbook to class every day, set it on the document camera, and actually show them where they can find what we just talked about. Stop periodically and show them, this is where you see that, and here's some more examples. And try to show them that this is a useful resource rather than assume.
Right, and then, right, and it gives purpose to that textbook, why you're spending the money on that, if it's gonna be in class. Great, thank you.
The other thing
Anything else
is
you want
just,
to?
it was a reminder today that what we already do to some extent in the online classes is we have a kind of orientation where we answer questions about what was on the syllabus and stuff. But we don't really do it that much in our traditional classrooms, and it might be worthwhile doing in the traditional classrooms. Make sure they're navigating their syllabus and they understand what's there.
Like a syllabus quiz, or I think you mentioned pairing and sharing and having the students go over parts of the syllabus. Great, thank you very much. Over here, anything you want to share?
Us?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Well, we realize that there's no two classes that are alike. And for example, things that maybe work in the fall class don't work with the winter class. And if you teach year-round, you learn that your better quality students are in spring and summer because they're more dedicated. A lot of them come from universities, they're guest students. And you have to be very flexible to, in fact, it's almost a gift to teach those classes versus the fall and winter. You gotta hustle, but the thing is that they're right with you. They understand the importance of a short class and that there's no time to waste.
Right. So each class is unique. It's upon us to kind of understand who our audience is at the time and adjust, be flexible in our teaching methodology to meet that unique class.
Right.
Great, thank you. All right, how about back there?
One of the things we talked a lot about were some of the Blackboard resources we talked about today, the modifications to the grade book and using some of those tools. That was really helpful. And for me personally was the discussion from Dr. Wilson about modeling note-taking. We've talked about that a lot in my classes, but this idea of maybe giving them a sample page from the text, some sample note-taking so they can see, here's what we mean when we take notes on the text, to teach them that skill. Because I teach a lot of intro classes where this may be their first class in the university or in the college.
No, I love that idea as well. I wrote that down. I'm going to bring in, near the beginning of the semester, just photocopy a page and we'll do a highlighting exercise. And I also loved, I think it was yours, find the error in the picture, find the mistakes in the picture. I think that's great. All right, thank you. This group over here, you guys?
Oh, yeah, I'm going more and more because of attendance issues in 8 a.m. classes. The students aren't there at 8 consistently at all. More and more to unannounced activities like extra credit, and even I'm probably going to go towards graded activities like reading comprehension assignments. And I'll usually make a group activity so that students can bounce ideas off each other. But otherwise, I have a revolving door of people coming and leaving in the 8 a.m. class, so I have to come up with ways to get them there at 8.
Talk to Don. Don's got a great concept for a 5-minute quiz that he gives in the beginning of class. So you guys can pair up. I don't teach 8 a.m. classes because I would be able to get there at 8 a.m. So. Thank you for teaching those.
If you don't take the quiz.
Oh.
I don't do that anymore.
Anything else you guys wanted to
It's a
share?
3-hour class.
We're good? Okay, our last group over here. You guys have anything?
Yeah, he said that he was going to be more encouraging with the 4 to 1. He liked that. He thought it was always 2. And I said, now that he realizes, depending on the complexity and the difficulty of the class, he will emphasize 4 to 1 and why that's beneficial for STEM class.
One thing that I got from Dr. Wilson was a quotation, you don't manage your time, you manage your action. And that goes in with students who are, like you said, juggling 3 jobs, friends, taking care of grandma, going to school, etc. And it's up to them to decide if they're going to spend that 4 to 1 ratio. And I always point out to students that with the 2 to 1 ratio, if you don't have 12 hours a week to devote to this class, you probably won't do well. And now if I use the 4 to 1 ratio, it's if you don't have, 24 hours per week to spend on this class, that seems like an awful lot.
Right.
But you'll do poorly. And it's true. But again, students have to decide if they need 3 part-time jobs, or if they want to go to school, or they need to manage their activity, because we only have 168 hours a week.
Right. The only thing I would say about that 4 to 1 ratio or 2 to 1 ratio is really know what that time frame is for most of your students. Because if it is really 2 and you're telling them 4, I think they might get discouraged right off the bat. So it's, I kind of try and always ask my students, how much did you spend this week, and keep an idea. And then I always tell them that varies based on how well you can read and the difficulty of the class. And it's actually something we do in OEOE, is where when we orient our students during OEOE, we talk to them about what the time expectation is. I wanted to share, we have a guest online, right, through Collaborate. Our guest said she liked the idea of using a worksheet to aid the students in reading the syllabus to find the most important points. So I think that came from Dr. Wilson's. And then indicated that before each lecture, they use a short online quiz about that day's readings, which again was coming back to that assessment point. So thank you to our online collaborators. Well, I thought I would have more time to go through the next 2 questions, but I will let you guys ponder those on your own time. Please make sure you take one of the Teaching Today students' handouts with the takeaways. There's some good resource tools on there, especially related to Blackboard, and then giving feedback. Oh, all right. We have 1 minute. Let's shout out really fast. What are some of our favorite features of Blackboard? Is that the question?
Yeah.
Favorite features of Blackboard?
Oh, great book.
Grade Center. Grade Center.
Well, I love the announcements because I get
Yep,
students
announcement.
quick.
Yes. I love the announcement. Click email.
Storing materials there.
Storing materials.
Materials or videos or whatever.
Sharing class documents. I'm going to add another one there. I like the faculty area because then I can store my stuff in one spot for me relative to that class. And I also like using the messaging feature. It's different than the email, but I like using messaging so I can keep it in the class.
Okay, what is it, Jill?
So, with my online students, I don't have them email me. I prefer that they don't email me. You have a message feature, so everybody in the class has an inbox and an outbox. So I have them message me. I check those messages in the class. That way I know which student, which section, which assignments I'm dealing with, and I respond, and it goes to their inbox. So that way I keep all of the correspondence within the course.
You know immediately who the student is in which class, so I'm not running through 3 grade books
Yes.
trying to find them.
So
So I use it for on campus too.
So that was just one feature that I like to use. All right, does that help? Well, thank you all so much for attending. I really appreciate your time. Enjoy the rest of your Friday and have a wonderful weekend.
Yeah.